Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our two new friends, Christof Bogacs and Marie Enger, and we're here to break down Under Kingdom, and this was such a fantastic book. I loved every bit of it, and the best part is it's free for all ages, right? 10 plus, so you can give it to your kids, you can read it yourself, have fun with the family. Christof, Marie, welcome to the show. How are you two doing?
I'm doing good. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We are here to break down the final cutoff date for Under Kingdom, which is December 12th. So you have 6 more days. Here is the pre-order link, so be sure to check that out. Before we dive too much into Under Kingdom, though, let's begin with the basics and start with introduction. So give us a little bit about who you are and how you guys got into comics.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Marie? I feel like your story is a little bit more interesting.
Oh man. So I got started in comics when I quit animation in college. I graduated. My whole life I was like, I'm going to be an animator. Then I did not like it, and so I was like, oh God, what do I do? But yeah, it was really awful. It was like a really stressful moment, and I was like, oh God, what do I do? And an old friend of mine back in St. Louis was like, well, why don't you come back? And you can help me kind of get my comic pages set up. And so I started helping with like panel borders and filling in like spot blacks and stuff like that, and lettering and coloring. And over time, my client list grew and like my collaborator list grew, and I started drawing more comics on my own and doing conventions. And I ended up at Emerald City in 2018, and Christof came by and was like, would you draw me a Nightcrawler? And I said yes. And then he gave me money, and I was like, I'll draw you this Nightcrawler, come back. And when he came back, we had like a really good conversation. We just hit it off really, really well. We went and got gluten-free pizza at a pizza place, which was really exciting because pizza's delicious. And now we have a book together. And yeah, it's like the super condensed version.
So what about animation was it that pushed you away, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, the same thing that pushes a lot of people away from comics. It just felt like a really unstable work environment for me. It was long hours. I was a cog in a machine, but it wasn't a machine that was mine. And I'm hesitant to say like, oh, I hated it, I never want to go back, because there's probably a time in my life where I really will want to go back. But at the time it wasn't right. And I did not like living in LA. It wasn't for me. I like it dark and I like it cold. And, yeah, LA is like LA is hot and sunny. And I lived in a crazy neighborhood, which wasn't like bad. It was just like a lot of weird stuff would happen there. So no one ever wanted to come see me. Yeah, it was just kind of like it wasn't my thing. But comics super was my thing, and I really loved, even though it was like roughly the same hours for way less pay, I really enjoyed being able to like do lots of different things all at the same time. And so I would work on primarily short comics and a lot of short horror, just in my downtime between working on what I would call like my day jobs, which would be like coloring, lettering, book formatting, stuff like that. It's all really important to know. And I definitely think that when you're creating your own graphic novel, especially like Under Kingdom, you'll see has so much of just, it looks like a very cohesive book. The art direction is really tightly controlled. And I feel very fortunate that every other like side gig I ever had led me to the point where I was able to confidently be like, this is how I want my book to look. This is how I know my book can look. I said mine on this one. I meant Under Kingdom is our book, but also for, like, my personal books. I was like, I don't want to be a diva on this, but
no. In terms of hours, you've spent so many more hours in this world than me, just because you're the artist, and it's so much more time consuming.
It has to be nice, kind of breaking away from that cog feeling and like kind of really embracing your own style, right?
Yeah, it feels really great, and especially like we had an interview last week where our interviewers were like, it felt like a cartoon. It had like the pacing of a cartoon, and it felt like a cartoon. And that was such a great compliment, because I was like, oh my God, maybe I didn't waste like all my college years getting a cartoon degree. But we worked really well together. And I think just kind of having that background in cartoons and loving animation like I did definitely helped with pacing. And Christof's writing is so like joke packed and filled and action packed, and so like it fit really well. Yes. Oh no, I think if we've learned anything from previous interviews, not enough jokes.
Yeah.
We could do more.
Christof, to you now. 5 years ago, you having gluten-free pizza, hopefully not with pineapples and ham, hopefully.
No ham on these pizzas.
Yeah, and they also, because my partner at the time came with us, and she was like anaphylactic to dairy, so like if she had like dairy, her like throat would swell up. So I imagine we had like we had dairy-free pizza as well. It was a very, very scary time.
That would be so stressful.
And look, it was.
But we all lived.
We're all fine now. What I was going to say is that the reason that I kind of first, I guess, or the Marie's work that I first found online was she did a whole bunch of illustrating punk lyrics and turning them to comics.
And
through that we had like a bunch of bands that we both really love in common, mainly like Fiddler and Pup. And that was kind of why I went to their table and how we kind of initially hit it off, because at the time, at least, living in Australia, we have a good punk scene here, but like I don't really know anyone that was like Pup especially isn't huge here, and Fiddler's a little bit bigger, but they're both, because they're like Pup's Canadian and Fiddler's American, not huge, not big here, and don't really play here.
Do they play fiddles though?
Sorry?
In Fiddler?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Sorry.
No.
Like, it must be like my my American thinking. I heard fiddle, and I'm like, dude, punk and fiddles might actually be pretty fire.
It is. World Inferno, in Punk's Win, that comic anthology, World Inferno does sometimes play fiddle, and so does Mischief Brew. They were both also in there.
I could see someone getting down.
They're great. No, Christof, I totally forgot about that whole collection. I don't know how.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know. I mean, for me anyway, like music is such a good litmus test of like, if we're going to connect, particularly I think around punk music, where like punk is such a bombastic genre in a lot of ways. And it's kind of like, I don't know, if we like don't agree on art and like politics and stuff, it's unlikely we're both going to like punk.
Yeah. Or at least even the same types of punk. We have a lot of overlap.
Yeah, 100%.
In music interest as well as art interest and storytelling interest and ethical interests.
Yeah. So that's how Marie and I sort of first met. And I said this on the other podcast, so unfortunately it's not an exclusive anymore, but I kind of shared for the first time that when I had met Marie, I'd actually thought about reaching out to them about a different project. And I didn't, because I just thought, they're out of my league, like creatively, they're probably swamped with work and stuff. So it was like the first time we kind of started talking about working on something, it was like a dream come true. It was, it was someone I'd wanted to work with for ages. So it was really lovely when we first kind of started chatting about the story that eventually became Under Kingdom.
So what was your, sorry, Marie, go ahead.
Oh no, it's just crazy that I faked it so well and everyone about me, especially like during that period of time. I think it's just prolonged eye contact with everybody and just being so loud. But I had everybody fooled. But now it's real. Now I have a job.
Now you actually have to do it, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, it worked too well.
So, Christof, what was like your writing experience, around that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like, I think a lot of creators, I'd done a lot of like writing for review sites and like pop, and like comic reviews and pop culture reviews, and then I kind of, from there, I started making short comics. So I think when I met Marie, I had a bunch of short comics that I had done at that time, and that's kind of how I first got into it. I mean, I think that doing short comics is such a good way to cut your teeth. And from there, I did a few sort of anthologies, and then I mean, I think by the time Marie and I started talking about Under Kingdom, I think I may have had another book I picked up by Scout, which is Volume. But this was kind of, the second thing. So I still feel pretty fresh, but particularly with Under Kingdom, it was quite like, it was very fresh, and certainly my first project at like a major, a big publisher.
So is this your guys' first time working on like a book that's, can be read by children as well as adults?
This is like our first collaboration. I didn't know how to
properly like work that.
No, that's like, I had done kind of like the 90s alt comic like IP stuff. So Rocko's Modern Life, I did an Invader Zim cover,
that is
some Rick and Morty covers.
Awesome, dude. Oh my god,
I loved it. I really
Rocco?
I loved Rocco growing up, and I always really identified with Ralph Bighead, and I guess I'm Poison One now. But it was great. It was so funny when that movie came out. My dad was like, "Look, it really is you." But it was like this. I was really excited to work on that stuff, but I had never gotten to work on something that was. I'd never worked on something for kids.
Mm-hmm.
I had been asked to work on something for kids. And so when Christof and I were trying to figure out what to do, I knew that this probably wasn't something that I could write at that time, just because I had done like IP stuff, but writing a short for Rocco or Adventure Time is really different than writing like
totally
a whole book for kids.
Because you got continuity to worry about, right?
Yeah, that and like in another interview that we had, Christof brought up a really good point, which was like, when a kid misses school, it's a big deal, and kids talk about it. And so that's like a big thing that kids in a school would talk about if a kid suddenly was gone. And I would have never thought about that sort of stuff. Like even the children's book stuff I work on now is really very adult. Mm-hmm. I just didn't have it in my skill set. And so I also drew comics as though I was drawing them specifically for adults. So really dense. And still, obviously, I have really dense panels and a lot of panels and a lot going on in every panel for panels straight at a time and no breaks at all. But before Christof, that was an even bigger problem that I was having, where I would just pack as much as I could into a page. And so I didn't have necessarily the self-editing skills to create something for kids. So it really was like a collaboration that for me needed to happen so that I could kind of learn and do other all ages stuff. Mm-hmm. And was also something that was exactly the sort of stuff that I wanted to draw, with the exact sort of person who was giving me the sort of like inspiration and kind of back and forth that I needed to really kind of develop that style and come into my own on it. And so it worked out really well, but I had never and had no interest in doing something for kids before.
Oh, that's very kind, Marie.
And I know we were talking backstage about it, and I think right now we can kind of dive a little bit deeper. But like for you, with writing towards a younger market compared to writing towards maybe older markets, like how was that? Like in my head, it would almost seem like what Marie was saying, like it would be like so hard to kind of like I guess like simplify it, make it more approachable for children. So how was that for you?
I think that's a great point. I think one of the things I like about writing for kids, and one of the things both kind of Marie and me figured out, doing the art for Under Kingdom, is clarity. Is making sure that stuff is clear. So less busy backgrounds, and a lot of the notes I would give to Marie and I would be like, drop the background out here. It's all about these two characters, so let's just have them. We don't need to have the other stuff. The other thing I found in regards to writing for kids is, I think a lot of writers, myself included for a long time, kind of feel like when you're writing for kids, it's about what you can't do. You can't be violent. You can't have, too many adult themes. You can't have swear words, all this kind of stuff. And I think for me, the big paradigm shift came when I realized the freedom of writing for kids, which is that they're so much more open, that they're so much more willing to accept stuff than adults. That you can be silly. You can actually, in kids' books, you can do all the things you can't do in adult books. And Under Kingdom wouldn't, in its current form, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that, me really trying to lean in and embrace what is so freeing about writing for kids. If Under Kingdom couldn't exist in its current form for an adult audience, because you'd have to be way more, character focused on Shay, and you have to be less silly. And, I joke that if it was for adults, it would probably just become Breaking Bad with like monsters. And I don't want to write that. But, Under Kingdom exists because kids are open in a way that adults aren't, and once I kind of made that head switch, I do both, but kids' books, there's just something so incredibly freeing about them.
You guys got to get a shirt with Shay saying, "I am the danger," or "I am the one who."
God.
So, give us a little bit about Under Kingdom, and for everyone watching, the final cutoff date is December 12th. So you have 6 days. Here is the link. Be sure to pre-order this, what is the best link for them to pre-order from? Do you guys have like a preference? Like if you got more of like a cut from like Amazon or something.
No, I mean, I think
we would definitely want you to order it from your local comic book shop, but if you can't 100%. Do that, I would think the Random House distro link would
Penguin Random House.
Yep.
Yes, Penguin Random House distro link would probably be the most comprehensive of the links.
Totally. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think as a golden rule with any book, right, the creators will always want you to pick it up from your comic shop if you can, and then if you can't, really wherever's most convenient for you.
Yeah, they have it on like Target.com and
Walmart. It's Walmart.
Yeah, you guys were saying that. That is so awesome, though, right?
It's
like
insane.
It's super weird.
It seems insane.
There was a kids book section at the Target I went to the other day, and it was like I was excited to see it because I love a good bookstore, like just randomly. And I'm sad that a lot of them are dying, but I loved seeing it in the Target because like, oh, I could totally just sit down and read these books if they weren't all for kids.
Totally.
And the stools weren't also clearly for children, and I wasn't a 32-year-old adult. It would look horrible to stand there. But they had a lot of books that looked like Under Kingdom would fit in alongside with really well. I could see Lemon as a beautiful display in Target. His yellow body wrapped and draped around like a beautiful dragon garland. We have a dragon in the book. You'll see it. It'll be good.
It's the best. So to answer your question, Cody, I mean, I think the quick pitch is that, it's about this kid, Shay, whose mum goes missing. And when she goes missing, he realizes that she ran this mythical kingdom of monsters that lives under his town of West Virginia. And with her gone, he's now going to have to step up and look after this kingdom. But the catch is that, this world of monsters is strength driven, and, they want their leader to fight for them and to be strong and violent. And Shay is not that. Shay's a sweet kid. He's his sort of superpower is diplomacy and ability to lead with empathy. So it's about him kind of being thrown to this world that wants him to be violent, and he's just not that person, and how he kind of adapts and copes with that.
No, I love this so much. Can you give us, before we're going to actually pull up, we have a chance to look at the 6-page preview, but before we do that, can you guys give us a little bit about the creative process? I know you said this was kind of like a learning experience, but how did that look, with Christof handing you the script, or, maybe Marie handing you a little bit of art? What was that like?
We had a shared Dropbox folder. So once we did like a pitch, I love the shared Dropbox folder because I don't want to have to send links every day, but I want people to check in and see them whenever they desire to. And so we set up a pitch, and Christof gave me the script. I went through and I drew stuff. He told me, I think, very minimal changes. We kind of designed the characters together. We talked about what everyone looked like, and then it was just really easy. You would give me stuff, I would give you stuff, then so on and so forth until the book was done. At some point, Jordan and Jasmine, our flatters, came in, and they helped us flat stuff, and Connor, our wonderful editor, edited stuff. But yeah, it was pretty painless. I felt like it just was very simple.
I like that Dropbox idea a lot, honestly. Like, I always hear about the endless emails back and forth, so that is actually pretty genius.
Well, because sometimes it's just like a page. Like, it's just page 12. It's not super exciting, but if you write it, you want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'd bring up as well, I think, is Marie and I are very good at for the most part, I'll give Marie suggestions and she'll change stuff, which is great. That's what I love to see. And then I might be like, hey, that's great, but can we change this back? And it's, it's a really, not even negotiation makes it sound like hostile, but just really a lot of back and forth, we're very open. And with a lot of the monster designs, Marie had like a bunch on her website they'd done already. So like, I would just be like, let's put that in. And they're like, yeah, sure. And
you don't need to tell me to draw a skeleton twice.
Exactly. And like Lemon, I'm pretty sure for Lemon the dragon, who's one of our favorite characters, I'm pretty sure Lemon, you just like sent me a picture of Lemon and you were like, this is Lemon. He's got wings on his butt. And I'm like, excellent. He's in the book now.
He does. He's long. I've been drawing him since I was in my early 20s on bar bathrooms, and you don't see his beautiful butt cheeks in Under Kingdom yet. But maybe in future books we will, and they are really juicy. I thought that only if you go like way way down to the end of wherever Lemon is, 2 perfect peaches. Right there.
And it's like those little attention to details, you know what I mean? I love it. So let's go ahead, pull up the interiors, take a look. So how's it feel for you guys too? Having had this meeting in 2018, now you have a book coming out on Dark Horse. That is awesome.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
it's all really exciting.
I make this joke a lot. But like the idea that like the great thing about having a book with like Dark Horse is people know Dark Horse, or if they don't know Dark Horse, they know Hellboy. So you can be like, oh, I'm with the publisher that does like Hellboy and Umbrella Academy, and they're like, oh, I know that, and because a lot of people outside of comics aren't super aware of like the industry or the publishers. So I mean, having like a book at Dark Horse just made it so much easier to explain to my parents what I do.
Yeah, you don't have to like work around like a smaller indie publisher. You're like Dark Horse, like they're name brand. Like this is a big company.
Both Marie and I are also doing like books with major like publishers. Marie with Random House and myself with HarperCollins, and it's so such a game changer just to be able to be like, oh, I'm a writer, I'm doing a book with HarperCollins, and people just get it and are like, oh, he's not insane. Like, he's got stuff going on.
Every time I try to explain to people that I'm a cartoonist for my day job, blank stares. But the Dark Horse and the Random House has all the normies just like very impressed, which is nice. None of my comic friends are super impressed though, because they're all like, so what? We've also got deals. but all my parents' friends are like, wow, books.
And I mean,
great.
That's really why we do it, to impress our parents and their friends.
I just want them to know that I'm successful in writing books for children.
And the best part is that those children are going to grow up, so like you guys are going to have fans like from that early age on up.
Yeah, that's the goal.
We've talked about it a little bit on previous podcasts, but I think it's really, and one of the things I love about writing for kids and is really exciting about writing for kids is having the opportunity to be in someone's childhood. I think we all have texts and, books and movies and TV that we watched as a kid that just kind of stayed with us. So the opportunity to maybe be that for some kids is awesome. It's incredible.
That's a perfect point. Like when you mentioned Rocco, I had all these flashbacks. What was it? The dude saying fiddlesticks? Is it fiddlesticks or fish sticks?
It's fish sticks.
Yeah. I used to say that all the time when I was a kid.
It was great, but Rocco was in his like 20s and not like a healthy 20s, like a in a bad way. But it was so great, and I think a lot of that kind of weird 90s cartoon love we were able to extend into Under Kingdom, which was really, really great.
100%.
So give us a little bit about this cover. This is such a colorful cover. I love it. So what is going on here?
Shay's going into the Under Kingdom. I wanted to do a wraparound cover. I kind of have a dream where all 3 of them, or however many we do, are on a shelf together and they all look really, really nice, so that people want to display them on their fancy bookshelves. And so they only gave everybody the front cover, but the cover actually extends around the back. And so you see all the monsters kind of continue. You can see a little imp right near Christof's skull. Next to that little imp is a really cool little gnome, and behind a dwarf. And behind the dwarf is all of the Council of Fiends, our like secondary characters, Sabelle, and our little back blurb and our pull quotes from Michael Sweater and Christine Larson, which are great. But on the cover here, you just got Shay with the silver, his axe and silver slicer. You've got Lemon's yellow body in the background.
I was going to say Lemon, makes a bit of a cameo in the cover.
Yeah, Lemon is kind of all over the book. If you look for him, he's hidden in a lot of places. And then some red caps in the front are reading some comics, because it's a comic, and I thought that was very neat.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Lemon. Is there any special like symbolism behind this dragon, or is it just like one of your funnier like characters that you have in the story?
He's just really good. Sometimes you just draw a good character like the imps or Lemon, and you just got to reuse them as often as you can. Totally. And he's very long. He's quite long, maybe even long enough to wrap around the world. Who knows? So he could be in a lot of places at once, because he's so long. So I put him in a lot of places at once.
And I think I think, and this is one of the great things about working with Marie, is a character like Lemon, and there were a few others as well. I think like the Mothman comes to mind as well, where they like were pretty much fully formed. Yeah. Like Marie would show me the picture and be like, "This is who they are," and I'd be like, "Oh, I 100% get that," and then we would just run with it. And Lemon was one of those characters which is like, "Oh, we know who this is. Like, I know what he sounds like. You know, I know how he talks. I know what he's doing in his free time."
Was Shay one of those characters, or how did the character, model for Shay come about?
That's a great question.
I ripped off my husband's childhood looks to draw him unintentionally, but then I saw a picture and I felt a little self-conscious. But that was my thing with Shay. He gets a hat later, and I thought that was pretty cool. That changes his look a little bit, but not too much. So that was Shay for me. But Christof, you have a lot more in-depth Shay development than I do.
Honestly, I feel like Shay just kind of happened. Like, I was just like, he's just a little skinny kid. I kind of knew. I knew who he was, but I think with like, I probably wasn't necessarily like married to any particular visual look. So like, I knew he was like a sweet kid. I knew that he like loved instant mac and cheese, and that was kind of the core building blocks I gave to Marie. And then they came out with his incredible design.
I love right here too, translated from Jello speak. So like the little attention to details that you have in this are just chef kiss. Like, this is awesome.
Well, I mean, something Marie and I both have in common is that we love messing with and building off like existing lore for stuff. So like, obviously the gelatinous cubes are like a D&D thing, but we really wanted to make like, outside of just being a big cube of jelly, like, I like the idea of like, what's their culture? How do they communicate? Well, like, what's their deal? And that's a lot of like what we sort of try to do with the book, is to be like, oh, this monster that like, in a lot of fantasy and literature and games is just like a throwaway character, or like orcs are just there to get like stabbed by the hero. Like, what would they actually be like as like as a society? What do they value? How do they act? All that kind of stuff.
I love giving him, giving it some personality, instead of having it just kind of be like an NPC, giving it a little flair in this.
Little wiggle.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, something I think a big sort of inspiration point for Under Kingdom is like, again, just to compare to D&D, because it's kind of a reference point, is that you have these vast dungeons that you explore in D&D filled with different monsters, but a lot of the time, if there's just like a dungeon crawl, there's not a huge kind of explanation as to why are these creatures here, why are they working, are the kobolds working with the other with the goblins, or are they fighting, like, what's going on? Like, and so that was kind of like what we wanted to do, is have this big complex world and actually explain the different relationships all the characters have.
And I love this style so much, Marie. Your art is just so gorgeous in here. This was probably what you probably were in heaven with all these designs. I would almost imagine, right?
I loved all of them. I don't regret anything on Sibel. Not a damn thing. But I will say, if I was redrawing her, I probably would not give her uneven features.
Yeah, the 3 eyes and 3 hands.
Yeah, but they're all on different sides, and it was really hard for me to keep track of. And then I was like, oh god, I have to draw so many hands. I have to draw so many eyes. But I like her.
The good thing, like, canonically, is that because Sibel is a changeling, if you move stuff around, it makes total sense.
That is true.
I love that.
So she can be whoever. Oh, the imps were my favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say here is the imp.
Yeah,
I love this design so much.
Based off my cockatiels. So that's all teal all the time. I have 3 birds in the other room that you can't hear because it's nighttime. So it's time for them to be asleep. But we based all the imps off of them because they are cockatiels and they are indigenous to Australia.
Yeah. So in the back matter of the book, we had pictures of Marie's delightful cockatiels, so people will be able to see them.
Oh, that's awesome. I love this right here, too. This little stat sheet about the imps.
Yeah.
So you guys were talking about, like, the D&D, like, smaller influences, but I love how you have this stat sheet, too. Do we see more of this with the other creatures as well? Cool.
Yes,
that's
100%.
awesome.
There's probably
it's
like
really good.
Maybe like 6 or 7 in total, a bunch.
I think so. Yeah, because we have one for all the fiends.
Yeah,
I love.
And the
this
reason
too.
is like number one, it was really fun to do, and number two, just from like efficiency standpoint, it's a really quick way to move the story forward and kind of tell everyone the important things they need to know about these creatures. You know, like how they function, what they value, all that kind of stuff.
Maria, I gotta ask, how many Easter eggs are hidden in this? You know, the Burger Kong, time to dance. This looks like it's riddled with a bunch of Easter eggs.
I don't know. I just feel like I would get sued if it was the Burger King crown. They'd make me change it. The 7-Eleven cup is just the 7-Eleven cup, and the time to dance is never not time to dance. If you're building a world, you have to fill out the world like it is a world. And so I just fill it in with off-brand stuff. And I do that with everything. I don't know if they're Easter eggs, but it's just, I guess, deeper lore.
No, that would make sense too, though. I mean, often when I'm reading a book, like if the background doesn't feel like, that's the background could be hit or miss, right? Like sometimes people will go that extra effort, or sometimes they won't. And you could really feel it in the book.
Yeah,
and I think
I can go overboard sometimes, but I
you know what? I don't know, like, because I think, when thinking about like Under Kingdom being compared to animation, a lot of like my favorite animations, like The Simpsons is a great example where whenever you like freeze a frame, if there's a sign or a billboard or anything, there's always something funny that, it's always worth pausing. And you've noticed all these little details they put in the background just because they could. And that's what, I love that that Marie has done the same with Under Kingdom. Every panel, if you kind of spend some time to look at it, there's a bunch of fun little details that tell you kind of more about the world.
We have limited pages. We must be efficient.
Yeah, totally.
102 though, that is quite the collection. So how much of that is going to be story and what's going to be kind of the extras?
88 pages of story, and then 6 pages front, 6 pages back.
Yeah.
And then I think 1 is unaccounted for. I think that might be our extra page that we need to finish off binding. Yeah, I shouldn't know all this stuff. I don't know why I've retained it in my brain. That's not important information for anyone else, or really even us. But I remember it.
But yeah, it's 88 pages of story. I mean, initially when we pitched it, we envisioned it being 150 pages, and then we kind of chatted with Dark Horse and we all decided that it was going to be better to make it smaller. So that kind of led to the efficiency you see on the pages. Like, I was basically hacking away and making sure all the core story beats could fit in 88 pages. And so we felt like we did them justice.
So did the extra 50, 60 pages, is that gonna, I know you guys have maybe let it slip. I don't know if I can ask this question. If you can't answer it, feel free.
Yep,
but
of course.
Volume 2, Volume 3, did some of that maybe lead into that? Or is that something we got to kind of...
We don't have anything like set in contract or anything like that. But Christof and I have a mighty dream and passion that we would get to continue this. And obviously, like with book market stuff, people have to pre-order the book so that Dark Horse will be incentivized to let us have a second book. And then our schedules have to work out. But this was a project that I really loved working on because I loved the world and I loved drawing it. But it was also one that was really good for my mental health. I draw horror comics as my other job. And so I can get really void trippy and I kind of, part of my balance and my promise to my husband is that I would try to have a funny project and a horror project going at the same time so I wouldn't get all bummed out. So anytime I worked on Under Kingdom, it instantly elevated my mood. It made me really happy. I loved working on it. And I think that joy really shows. So I would, even if we can't get something else through Dark Horse, I know that I would love to keep this series going just because it's a joy to work on and a joy to collaborate on. So it's a dream.
Yeah, it's kind of like we will do everything in our power to make more. It's how I would describe it. Yeah, because it was such a wonderful experience, and we have such love for these characters in the world. And to answer your question, Cody, in terms of story beats that I cut that are moved on to future volumes, there actually wasn't that much. There's only really kind of one plot point that would be addressed in 2 that I was hoping to fit in 1 and that we just couldn't. But a lot of, it was a great exercise because a lot of what I cut was honestly just fat stuff that didn't need to be there.
And everyone listening, right here is the link pre-order this. We are literally the day before New Comic Book Day. They want to make Volume 2. Let's help make Volume 2 happen for them.
It would mean a lot if you're able to.
So what would you guys like to say to anyone that is listening that might be on the fence about backing? We have 6 days until the final cutoff. Like, if you just had a few seconds to kind of address anyone that might be teetering, what would you say to them?
It's an inexpensive book. Your nieces and nephews will love it. And then when you're like, I want to read Hellboy, they'll be ready to read Hellboy because they'll understand how to read a comic, and they'll already be real deep into fantasy, and because they'll have seen like the Jelly Cube monsters and the imps and the kobolds, they'll be like, I want to watch fantasy stuff. Perhaps even a He-Man. Perhaps even Adventure Time. This is the gateway comic. Just one single He-Man. Maybe a She-Ra. They just want to get into it. This is their gateway. So it really, I think it costs like, what, $12? For $12, you could get your niece and nephew into all your nerd crap for the rest of your life and be the coolest aunt or uncle or cousin or sibling or whoever that ever did walk the earth. So that's my pitch.
A hell of a pitch, Marie.
Yeah, that's a good
Kids don't have any money, but you do. Buy it for your niece and nephew. Be popular.
Christof, you got to follow that, man.
I don't know. Look, I don't know if I can. I think what I will say is that, it's a fun fantasy comedy graphic novel that kind of hits the nostalgia notes that adults love, whilst also, dealing with modern themes and modern storytelling sensibilities, which is way less convincing than what Marie said. But it's, a lot of what you love from your childhood combined with what kids want now from their stories.
Yeah.
No, that is awesome.
We didn't write it for the aunts and uncles. We did write it specifically for the children. But we also are children in our hearts.
Yeah, 100%.
And in our maturity levels. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we kind of say it's for children and also immature adults.
Sounds right up my alleyway then. So what's next for you guys outside of Under Kingdom? What are you guys working on, like maybe in the future? Individually.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Marie?
Sure.
Or do you want me to?
I'll go. I'm working on horror books. Lots of horror books. Sad, depressing horror books for children, for kids.
What a twist, though.
I got asked to do a collection of short stories by Random House Graphics a couple years ago, and so I've got a collection of short stories coming out in 2024, I believe, through them, and I self-publish a lot. I self-publish a lot of comics and books and games and all sorts of stuff. So currently I have a bootleg Kickstarter running, which is really just a pre-order on my website for something called Clack Clack Clack, which is a 5-foot-long book that you so there's this German winter monster called the Schnappviher. And I know everyone knows about Krampus and thinks Krampus is hot shit, but Schnappviher is where it's at. They're these weird clacking creatures and they run down the square. So every year I draw like hundreds of them, just kind of for me, for reasons. And this July I was like, what if I did a 5-foot-long accordion book of these guys that was like an infinity book? So no matter how you turn it around, it's one long image of these monsters on parade.
That is so cool.
It's I think it's really awesome.
It sounds really complicated.
It was complicated to draw, but like for a reader, it's not, because you can read it. You can flip through it like a book.
The art sense, like to do that, it sounds like such a complicated process.
It was, and it was a great challenge, and I love doing it. And so I printed them off. They're actually I'm kickstarting it, but I wanted to have them in time for Christmas, so I bought them like
Do you have
in
one?
October. Yeah. Oh God. Pause. Talk to Christof. I'm gonna run and get one, and then I'll be right back. Right. Yeah. BRB.
So Christof, what about you? What are you working on next?
Yeah. So my next kind of, I guess, kids thing is going to be Earth to Chris Clavey, which is a graphic novel coming out from HarperCollins in 2024. So that is, I think, not as maybe joke dense as Under Kingdom, but definitely like kind of the same sort of fun sensibilities. So it's about a young kid with OCD who is convinced his mom's new boyfriend is an alien. So, it
sounds so good.
Yeah, so it kind of mixes slice of life with sci-fi and definitely like riffs on a lot of lot of the like the media that scared me as a kid to like Independence. I'm trying to think like Independence Day. I remember like seeing a trailer for like the Mars Attacks film as like a kid, and it like
Oh man, that was terrifying.
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So it was really fun to kind of like channel all the stuff that just scared the crap out of me as a kid. So that's And then outside of that, I also do a self-published ongoing comic called Meat for Burgers with the amazing Becca Kubrick, who is a artist based in Manchester in the UK, and that's about a bunch of teens at this like just weird burger place who basically wake up at the burger place at like this McDonald's ripoff, not having no idea like who they are, how they got there. All they kind of know is that they have a name tag with a name on it and they have a job to do, and that's kind of it's like
that
existential horror
awesome,
kind of
dude.
meets my obsession with fast food.
So where can people find that though?
So if you just go, probably the easiest place to find it is if you just go to my Twitter, and I believe I have links up the top there. I'm trying to think where else. I probably haven't done the best job marketing it, but yeah, if you go to my Twitter, which is at Christof Bogacs, or my website, which is christofwritescomics.com, there's links for it on both those places.
And then we'll have those updated. We have the Twitter, but we'll update the website link in the description as well. So Marie,
yeah, that would be amazing. I'll send you that.
I'm going to go ahead and give you an enlarged solo layout so you can show off your book.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you. I'll do my very best. All right, so check it out. So I just got these in. They were drying out. You untie them.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yes.
She's like, just wait. We haven't even started.
No, it gets better. So then, right, you've got your little accordion book. Unfold. You've got a cover. Wow. So they're facing each other because in the myth, you got to tie the Schnappviher up, prevent them from coming back in. That's not what we're doing. We're letting them out. So, all right, I got to figure out the best way to do this in my tiny, tiny studio. 1.
Oh man, that is so cool.
That's right.
Okay, so that's one side, right? Like,
yeah,
moving
huge
back and forth, and then you're like, wow. 5 feet of book is not enough for me. I need more book. You flip it over. Same thing, right? We're continuing the illustration, but now we've got a different view.
That's wow.
Cool. It's so hard to unwrap. Yeah.
That's
so
gorgeous.
Then there it is. More book. So all of these have just arrived. They just got delivered to my fulfillment folks in Clackamas, Oregon today. Yeah, I'm excited. I think they turned out really good. So
no, that looks gorgeous. I love how it works both ways too.
Isn't that crazy? I made like an itty, I don't know if I still have it even, but I made like an itty bitty tiny like 1/50th of the scale tiny one to practice on, and I practiced on it every day.
So was that hard
for everything lined up?
The printer to do? Like I would almost be curious how they would do it, right? Like that's
they got it really. I worked with this printer before, which has been really, really lucky. Like there's been a relationship that we developed, which is great. They sent us some digital proofs, and then they still weren't sure, so they sent us like a wet proof, and they got it like almost completely right in one go. The only issue that they had was they didn't line the ribbons up with my main character's hands. And so they fixed that, and it was super easy. That was the only thing they had to do.
And then where could everyone find that? Like your own personal website?
Yeah, you can help me kickstart that, bootleg kickstart that at SOENGERY.com. You'll see it right there on the front page. And I need more money to pay off my credit card bill on it. Because I got them, they're here. And I do have a retailer discount if retailers want to reach out to me, because I love to get my stuff into local comic shops if I can, and I love to self-publish. It's a pain in the ass, but I love it, so I can't stop. Won't stop.
Oh, that is awesome. So before we wrap things up completely, here is the link once again, guys, to pre-order Under Kingdom. You have 6 days left. I always love finishing this podcast on a super strong note, and that is for anyone that is watching. We love to promote your book. We love to promote who you are, but there's also, a little room for anyone who might be new to kind of learn something. So with that being said, for anyone out there maybe starting this for the first time, maybe they're seasoned, but they're struggling and having a hard time just getting going, what would be your advice to help them get motivated just to get started?
Christof?
Well, I mean, my advice is start with short comics. So start with something, because a lot of people have it's really common that you'll meet someone who wants to write comics and they've got a huge story. I mean, always start with something that's really quite small in scope, with a distinct beginning and end, and is just a one and done thing. Sure, you might do more of it later, but really just focus on that. The way I kind of got started is I did a screenwriting course as part of my degree, and I wrote a short film that I then adapted into a comic. But it was, like a 10-minute film. I think it was maybe 10, 12 screenplay pages that then I translated into 20 pages of comics. But that would be my advice, is just think small, and learn, if you aren't already familiar with writing structure, learn a 3-act structure is so helpful. And also the Dan Harmon story circle, which is really like a riff on 3-act structure, is one of the best story writing tools I've ever come across. And it's just super accessible. I use it all the time. So I'd recommend starting there, and just answering the questions at each section of the story circle. And then you'll have an outline, and then you can make a script. That would be my suggestion.
What about you, Marie?
I would also highly suggest doing short comics. If you pick something that's a theme, then you have a collection later, which is really nice. And you can definitely self-publish that, and you should. If you're doing comics, I know we talked about how it's really nice to be able to tell people that you have a book at a publisher that people recognize. But self-publishing is really important, and is part of what keeps the medium alive and fresh. And so if you are creating comics professionally, and you're a professional, if you are putting out comics and doing the work and focusing on it and making sure that you feel fulfilled in this work, then you're a pro. There's so little money to be made in comics that you really don't need much more than $1 to be a pro. So don't let that stop you from making stuff, and don't let the difficulty of getting something published squash your dream, because like I said, there's so little money to be made here. You can really just make it on your own, and you should, because self-published stuff is awesome. And I love a good short comic collection. So if you make one, you can just link it to me and I'll probably check it out.
No, that is so awesome. I appreciate you two giving such awesome advice. Everyone watching, it is Tuesday, the day before New Comic Book Day. Here is the link. Check out Under Kingdom. Make sure you pre-order. If you're unable to, put it on Facebook, put it on Twitter, anywhere you can. Getting as many eyes on this project as possible is what we're trying to do, and word of mouth is 100% free. Christof, Marie, thank you guys so much for swinging by, hanging out with us.
Thank you so much for having us, Cody.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone watching, I hope you have a fantastic Tuesday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.